Well, hello there. And here's some tips for the Piston Honda MKIII dual wavetable oscillator. From industrial music electronics formerly known as the Harvestman. This fully modernized version of the beloved Piston Honda design presents lots of new improvements and is equipped with a clever preset management system. So no time to waste, and let's unbox this and explore the basics before we begin the training. I know exactly what you're thinking, and yes, this is sexy, like really sexy. But let's stay focused, my friends, because we still have a lot to learn. All the pertinent information is written on the panel, so it should be very easy to understand each section's properties. The oscillators section are almost identical, but we'll keep this for later. The upper section, for oscillator A. On the upper right, the OLED screen, where all the detailed informations for each oscillator and preset management is displayed. Information like the actual pitch, frequency, and wave shape illustration for each oscillators. The oscillator B section. On the right, the 3-axis waveform selection. Each sliders controls a bank of 8 different wave shapes. The outputs on the lower left. Each oscillator has its own output, and very useful for complex audio routing. A mixed output is also available for your needs. Oh. And what do we have here? An SD card reader. With this, creating and importing your own wave shapes to the Piston Honda will be easy as 1, 2, 3. Okay. We covered the panel's basics, time to move on and make some noise. What a beauty! And such tight shapes. But before scanning through the shapes, let's see how the select button will let us assign the shapes for each oscillators. Both select buttons are illuminated red, which means both are selected and ready to be edited. Pushing any of the select buttons will unselect or select the proper oscillator you need. It is not possible to deselect both oscillators. When only one oscillator is selected, more detailed information will be shown. Now let's choose a waveform for oscillator A. Using the mix output, so we can hear both oscillators. When both are selected, the same respective shapes will be shared. The OLED display will clearly indicate the selected waveforms of each oscillators. The Piston Honda contains 512 waveforms, cubically organized into 3-axis banks of 8 waveforms. Each axis has a manual control slider and a dedicated CV input. As you move the sliders, the OLED display will indicate the waveform number for each axis. The OLED will also indicate the actual pitch of each oscillator when both are selected. Individual oscillator selection will give you more information, like the frequency of the oscillator and a graphic tuning bar, showing the deviation from the standard pitch. This is very useful when you need to tune all your oscillators. Or if you combine the Piston Honda to the Stilson hammer, or the Argos Bleak. The note indicated on the Stilson hammer should correspond with the ones on the Piston Honda. The FM input provides audio rate through zero frequency modulation. The FM input is normal to the output of the other oscillator. You can use this control without using additional patch cords. Keep this knob in the 0 position if you do not want to use the FM feature. The attenuator will set the amount of incoming FM modulation. Now oscillator B's frequency and waveform are affecting the signal. Each oscillator has a CV input, useful if you need to transpose a sequence. You can use its attenuator to transpose up or down the sequence. Each oscillator's wavetable generator can accept an external audio signal. Sending some percussive sounds will bring some good dynamics. Let's plug this kick drum for instance. Adjust carefully the incoming signal amount with the attenuator. This sounds interesting, doesn't it? But there's a specific mode to use external signal instead of the proper oscillator. And this external input mode behave a bit differently. So prepare yourself some interesting audio signal, and let's try it out. To switch between modes, press the mode button on the desired oscillator. EXT will appear in the display when external input is activated. In this mode, the large knob functions as the manual gain control. When accessing this mode with no cable in the FM input, the oscillator will process the output of the other. And the oscillator's CV input and attenuator will provide voltage control of the gain. So let's send an envelope to the CV input. We can see this like a VCA with wavetable shaping properties, which can be really freaking cool, believe me. Let's add some frequency modulation on oscillator B. From oscillator A. Some sort of feedback frequency, since the output of oscillator B is normal to the FM input of oscillator A. You can try different waveforms from both oscillators. Let's send some random audio signal to the FM input.
Leaving London on a foggy evening and arriving in Johannesburg 14 hours later to a sweltering day in a city of 14 million on the brink of anarchy, I get to change my operating system. And so I notice the relativity of these systems.
Sending the attenuator in the negative range will reduce the gain amount. you can send any type of audio signal like percussions, speeches or any from your modular. Since we just talked about experimentation, we have not explored the sync input yet. The sync input will reset waveforms on rising edges. Let's use the output of oscillator B and create some complex textures. Adjusting the pitch and waveform will dramatically affect our signal. Let's try different shapes and pitch for each oscillators. Smoothly adding some FM, well, why not? All those features will definitely help you access some extensive sonic research. But it is not over yet. The Piston Honda MKIII got a lot more stuff upon its sleeves, and we got to keep learning and training hard. Because the next rounds are still full of surprises, and mostly knockout power. The Piston Honda MKIII lets you manipulate deeper parameters with the Oscillator Options menu. To access this menu, simply push the mode button of the desired oscillator, while holding down the rotary encoder. The OLED display will show some options. Navigate the parameters by turning the rotary encoder and push the encoder to edit its value. Let's edit the Unison Parameters. Unison enables a second oscillator to run alongside the main oscillator, with all parameters identical other than a slight difference in the frequency. The number indicates the frequency deviation. Let's explore this feature a bit. Oscillator B has a link button. It allows one-touch linking of oscillator A's frequency to oscillator B, for easy following behavior without the use of patch cables. We better get the mix output and try the link function. Pushing any button will get you out of the options menu. Activate the link functions by pushing the link button. Adding unison from each oscillator will result in massive 4 oscillator sounds. Finding some appropriate waveforms through the library. And adjusting carefully the FM inputs of both oscillators. Let's get back to the options menu. The Octave Shift is the second parameter editable. The octave shift changes the main oscillator pitch across a ±2 octave range. The oscillator will become silent if you exceed the Piston Honda's minimum range of about 14 Hz. The Unison, Octave Shift and Link functions works very well together, as you can hear and hopefully see. God damn it, how thoughtless of me. I almost forgot to tell you a secret. You can edit the Unison and Octave Shift with some button combination without the options menu. To switch the Unisons, hold down the rotary encoder, and push the select button of the desired oscillator. To shift octaves, hold down the select button of the needed oscillator, and turn the rotary encoder. But please don't tell anyone, it's a secret. Each oscillator smoothly morphs through the waveforms of the X, Y, and Z axis. But each axis can have its morphing interpolation behavior disabled individually. Accessing the options menu, you should find the morph enable parameter at the bottom. Let's set this value to none. Axis with disabled morphing behaviors will make harsh transitions between all the 8 waveforms. The waveforms go directly to the following ones. Interesting when you need more glitchy effects rather than a smooth operation. Why don't we enable just one axis? This function works well with the every features we saw earlier, and not to mention, controllable by CV. Because the waveform selection CV inputs are shared between the 2 oscillators, you may wish to disable the response for one of the oscillator. To edit this parameters in the options menu, keep scrolling through the parameters by turning the rotary encoder, until you skip to the next page. Simply switch the waveforms CV to off, and the incoming LFO signal won't affect this oscillator anymore. Kinda useful when you are using the Piston Honda as 2 independent oscillators. Now let's take a look at the last option parameter. The tone menu offers several different types of subtle distortion to be applied. It is most audible with sine waves or additive waveforms at low frequencies, where you may hear quiet fold-over of high-frequency aliases of the distortion products. The 4 types of tone distortions available are heterodox, degenerate, problematic, and pathological. The orthodox tone presents the full resolution of the 16-bit waveform, while the others introduce different flavors of quantization noise. To enable the preset manager, push the preset button to the immediate left of the display. The preset manager provides an easy way to manage the entire state of the panel parameters and menu system from a single set of controls. 8 presets are available, and they may be stored to non-volatile memory. You'll hear the rough transition of each presets when you scan through them. But if you push back the preset button again, you'll enter the preset Morph mode. In this particular mode, you'll smoothly scan through every interpolation of all the preset parameters and controls. Let's quickly edit a preset. To start editing a preset, simply push the rotary encoder on the desired preset. You should see the mention, Editing. The only parameters that are not stored are the external CV signals. All the knobs, sliders, pitch, unison, tones, waveforms and link functions are stored and morphable. Your editing won't be stored permanently if you don't save your presets before turning down your modulars. If you want all your efforts to be remembered through the presets, simply hold down the rotary encoder and push the preset button to enter the preset management options menu. Save to preset option lets you select in which slot you'd like your actual preset to be stored. If you edited more than one preset, the Save Presets options will store every presets to their respective slot. More options are also available in the Preset Options menu, like Randomize, Reload and Initialize Preset. By pushing down the link button while holding the rotary encoder, you can access the Global Options menu. The first parameter of this menu will let you select which elements and functions that are managed by the preset manager. Waves Only will consider every parameters except the pitch and fine controls, while all params will consider everything. This is useful if you wish to use the preset slots to create a sequence of notes, or a strictly defined basic pitch for each segment of a live performance. In preset Morph mode, all controls are locked and unable to move, but all the CV inputs will still respond. The preset CV input can be used under different behavior controls. Several options are available in the Global Options menu, accessible by the link and rotary encoder combination, as mentioned earlier. Send an LFO or an envelope to the preset CV input. The small knob next to the CV jack may act as an attenuator or an offsetter, depending on the control state selected. If you select the trig control, the CV input will be treated as a trigger input instead. Each trig or gate received will advance the preset number by 1. Keep in mind the all params or waves only values. If you wish to use the preset slots to create a sequence of notes, or a strictly defined basic pitch. The trig random value. In the Global Options menu, we'll randomize all parameters subject to preset scope when a trigger event is received at the CV input. Note that random patch results must be written to memory for permanent storage of these changes. On the second page of the Global Options menu, you can determine if you'd like the frequency and fine-tune knobs to be reversed. So the big knob becomes the fine-tune and the small one, the main frequency control. The Piston Honda MKIII allows you to easily create and upload your own waveforms into the module. Previous versions of the Piston Honda was also offering methods to achieve this, but this time, it could not be more convenient. The micro SD card reader, at the bottom of the panel, lets you upload the data in just a couple of seconds. You'll need to get your hands on a micro SD card, able to support a heavy massive storage of 8 waves of 32 kilobytes each. All the files needs to be 16-bit monowave, and the SD card must be formatted in FAT. Industrial music electronics highly recommend to use the free Wave Edit program developed by Synthesis Technology. You can download this handy wave editor freely on their web page at synthtech.com/waveedit. But before we get into this fine editor, we need to understand how the Piston Honda organize its appropriate files. Each axis of the waveform selector got 8 locations. Axis Z will decide which of the 8 banks of 16-bit mono wave files will be selected. Each of those 16-bit files got 64 waveforms in total. The 64 waveforms mono wave is divided into 8 sections. 8 sections of 8 waveforms. End axis, Y, determines the section within the whole wave set. And axis, X, determines the final selection of the waveform. Simple as that. A cubic morphing interpolation. Clever and sexy. It is important to mention that all the 16-bit mono wave files must be named as shown, numbered from 1 to 8, otherwise they won't be recognized and appreciated by the unit. If you have only created a small number of wave files, and need more data to fill the SD card, you can download the original factory wave set. In a matter of fact, I personally think it would be a better idea to start by editing those original factory waves, before creating your own from scratch. So what are you waiting for? Go get yourself the set on Industrial Music Electronics web page. You'll find the wave files in the firmware section of the Piston Honda's page. Now we all assume you've already installed the Wave Edit program, and you are ready to start editing. The program should look like this. The waves slots are here on the left. Let's open one of the factory wave set. Simply go to File, Open Bank, and find the sets where you stored them. First, if you are not hearing anything, click on the play square at the top left corner, and Morph Interpolate. You can scroll through the file at the left. A bunch of tools are available to let you draw and shape the forms the way you like. Just under the drawing board, you see the harmonics of the file, and you can edit the wave from the harmonics section too. And under the harmonics section, a couple of nice effects can be randomized or meticulously edited. The program is really intuitive and easy to navigate with. It's not like you could damage anything important here. Don't be shy, explore and experiment. I must confess, I think this program is so cool. I wish I could control it by CV. You can set the pitch of the edited preview that you are listening to. You can also upload existing sets and, if you're proud enough, share yours. But remember, before you save the files, all 64 wave slots must be filled, otherwise some waves would be silenced. Simply save the file, once you're satisfied, under the same name they were. Not too complicated, wasn't it? Now drag and drop them directly to the SD card, without any folder. It is safe to remove, or reinsert the SD card, while the module is turned on, but not while the file load operation is running. Then you must go to the Global Options menu by pushing the link button, while holding down the rotary encoder. Just scroll down to the next page and select Load Waves from SD. The load operation should start and be completed in just seconds. The module should reboot, and the presentation display will run, along with the Mark III triple shot logo from Castlevania. That's it. We revised and reviewed most of the aspects of this beloved module. Hope this was helpful. It may be a good idea to check out the manual for further explorations. We can't wait to see what comes next from those Mark III version with new morphing preset management. Crazy stuff guaranteed.